Good afternoon, everyone. If you wouldn't mind taking your seats. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon. While we get started, I just want to note two important program pieces of information. First, there are interpreter resources in the back left table over here. There are kits available for Spanish, Chinese, and Somali, if anyone would like them. So just over here in the back corner. I also just want to mention that we are joined here today by our budget materials, lots of information about how the city puts together both its operating and capital budget every year, specific investments that are in this year's budget in these posters here, and then the larger ones talk about exactly how our process works and what it takes to get us to an announcement like today's announcements that we're here to discuss. So thank you, everyone, for joining us this morning. To begin our program today, the second grade students from the Harvard-Kent Elementary School are going to sing the song "We All Need Peace" for us. Thank you so much. What beautiful voices and a beautiful song. Thank you to the students from the Harvard-Kent for that wonderful song, and to Principal Gallagher, Ms. Bastianelli, and Ms. Shukas for arranging the students to be here with us today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good morning again. My name is Emma Handy. I'm the Chief Administration and Finance Officer for the City of Boston. I want to thank you all for being here. We're here today to present Mayor Walsh's $2.78 billion FY20 to FY24 capital plan. Our capital plan makes critical investments in our city's infrastructure that reflect our core values and our priorities in our city. It's one that is affordable and sustainable. It's done within the framework of our debt affordability policy, which makes smart, targeted investments while adhering to the mayor's commitment to strong fiscal management practices, practices which are critically important because they've earned us, the City of Boston, a AAA bond rating with Moody's and S&P for 6 years. I won't get into all the details of the investments because others here that will speak will talk about them in more details. But there are many, many highlights in this capital plan that include things like renovations to revitalize our parks and protect our neighborhoods from rising sea levels and climate change, new firehouses and new fire trucks, a new police station, and a new EMS facility, improvements to our schools, including construction of new buildings and new kitchens, and the preservation and creation of new affordable housing units. These investments touch every neighborhood in Boston, and they are guided by the priorities that we set forth in our Imagine Boston 2030 plan, which was developed with the residents of the City of Boston. I want to thank, in particular, Justin Sterrett and his team in the Office of Budget Management for all their hard work to put this wonderful capital plan together. I want to thank the members of the City Council for your continued input and engagement with us through this process that we're embarking on together. And finally, I want to thank the Mayor for his vision and strong leadership in guiding this process and allowing for historic investments that impact every resident and every neighborhood. His commitment to the city is seen in this capital plan, and I'd like to introduce him so that he can review the plan with you all. Mayor Walsh.
Thank you, Emma. Sorry, I was talking to John Barrows. Thank you. Thank you. Let me. I love you too. Let me just thank a bunch of people. First of all, I want to thank the young kids that were here from Harvard Kent and Principal Gallagher. That's one of the first schools that I went into as a new mayor of Boston, and I had a chance to go in and walk around. And I want to say 2014 it was a level 3 school, and with incredible leadership, incredible teachers, an incredible community. That school is a level 1 school. It's one of my favorites, and I want to thank everyone with that school. I want to thank, joining us today, 2 Boston City councilors. I know we have budget hearings and a bunch of things going on, but I want to thank, we're inter-district, Councilor Lydia Edwards. Thank you, Councilor, for being in the district. Thanks for having us, hosting us today. City Council, citywide, East Sabi George. I want to thank Councilor George for being here. I want to thank most of the cabinets here today. I want to thank all of you for being here. I'll give different shout-outs as the day goes on. Thank you for what you do. To Justin, Emma, thank Justin, our budget director, his team. They did an amazing job putting the budget together, so thank you, Justin. But this budget was put together by our chief financial officer. And she has done an amazing job running the finances for the City of Boston. We have had, as she mentioned, a AAA bond rating for 6 consecutive years, but you can't have that type of success without having incredible leaders. And I want to give a special thank you to Emma Handy for the great work that she's done. I also want to thank the Charlestown residents. Thank you for letting us be here today. I appreciate that. And to all other residents that came out for this announcement, I want to thank you as well for being here today. 3 years ago, we did something different. We did the budget. We launched the budget in the Eagle Room at City Hall, and then we did the capital budget. Used to do it in the Eagle Room at City Hall a couple of weeks later, which is right next to the mayor's office. And a couple of years ago, we made a decision that the capital budget really is about investing in communities, and it's investments that are being made in every neighborhood and parks and buildings and things like that. And we thought it'd be a great idea to bring it out to the neighborhood. So the first year we did it, we brought over to Eastie, to Maverick Square, and we have a capital budget there, and it was really bringing the budget to the community, because at that point we were doing over Maverick Square and a whole bunch of other processes. Last year, we decided to keep tradition alive, and we made we did the announcement at Franklin Park next to the next to the Shattuck Hospital, and we brought it out to the community. And today we're here for a reason. I'm going to talk about that while we're here, but we decided to continue that tradition of making the investments in the neighborhood. 2 weeks ago, we presented an operating budget that the City Council is having hearings on right now of about $3.5 billion. It builds on fiscal management, and it's helped us keep this AAA bond rating. What that means is AAA bond rating, those of you that don't understand it, it's having really good credit. And we have the top tier credit in the city of Boston, and we've never had it for 6 consecutive years. We honestly never had it for 3 consecutive years, but now we have it 6 consecutive years. And what that does, it helps us. It helps us access capital, and it helps us to be able to continue to move the city along in a responsible way, and I think that that's really important. What I'm proudest to present today, I should say, our capital budget for fiscal 2020 to 2024. The operating budget is a one-year budget, so it's our police, it's our fire, it's our water and sewer, it's our public works, it's our schools, it's all that stuff. It basically pays the bills. What we talk about today is capital budget, which is a plan over 3 or 4 or 5 years that actually we're going to build stuff. We're going to remodel, renovate, build new things, and I'm going to talk about that today, and that's what the capital budget does. It's worth over $2.78 billion. It makes incredible and historic investments in public assets like schools, roads, bridges, parks, and libraries. As Emma mentioned, it reflects the feedback of Imagine Boston 2030, the planning process that we did a few years ago, where we had over 20,000 people in everywhere in the city sit down and talk about what they'd like to see the city look like in the future. Our goal is to improve the quality of life in every single neighborhood. And it's something like, for example, today, what we're doing here in Charlestown. A couple of years ago, we had a conversation about this very housing development that we're in today. It's the oldest in the country. I talked to Billy and I said, you know, this is something that the residents that live here deserve to live in 21st century living. And we need to make sure that we renovate and upgrade it. We've had some starts and stops with the project, and we are trying to figure out how we're going to move the project forward. We are lacking a national federal partner that in the past we'd go to the federal government and they would give us money to be able to help us with renovating like the President Obama did with Whittier Street right before he left office. But we don't have a national partner to help us. So what we're doing is we're investing in this capital budget $30 million in infrastructure right here in the Bunker Hill Housing Development to make sure that we actually begin the process of renovating deeply affordable homes. What this means is it's happening. This doesn't mean that it might happen. We're going to talk about it some more. That means it's actually happening. And I have to give a lot of credit. I have to give a lot of credit to Emma and Justin, who came up with some ideas, and Billy and his team to say, how do we actually make this happen? And that's something that I'm happy about. It's the first time ever that the city of Boston has invested bond dollars directly into the Boston Housing Authority projects. So this has never happened before. As we talk about, and you hear a lot of conversation about housing and affordable housing, and a lot of us, the city council, myself, we have a lot of conversations and advocates and advocacy groups, and Sheila Dillon, who's head of housing. And there's a lot of conversations. How do we do what we're doing, and how do we continue to make investments? And what this does, we need to continue to understand that affordable housing is the bedrock of a strong community, because people that live in affordable housing are the folks that come from the neighborhood. And a lot of people over the last 20 years in this country, not just in Boston, are being pushed out of neighborhoods. And we have to make sure in Boston we're putting a stake in the ground to make sure that we continue to build that housing to make sure people have a place to live. We need to make sure that Boston continues to take a lead in housing when we don't have a plan on a federal government level. So we can't wait for the federal government. We can't wait for an election 2 years from now. We have to make sure that we're happening now. This $30 million investment builds on tremendous progress that we've made over the last 5 years. We've built more affordable units that in the last 5 years than any other period on record. We have the highest percentage of income-restricted, affordable housing than any other large city in America. And we'll work to end chronic homelessness amongst veterans, and we're working on ending chronic homelessness. This $30 million is a step. And what it means is it's not just a $30 million investment. It's a new way of being able to support affordable housing so we can take the model that we're doing here in Charlestown and take it around the city of Boston to other neighborhoods where we have to make investments in affordable housing as well. And so that's something what I'm excited about. Today we're going to hear from Nancy Martinez. Nancy has lived at Bunker Hill Housing for 25 years, and she's recently elected as the president of the Charlestown Residents Alliance. And she's going to talk more about the investment here, but we need to make sure we continue to do that. This capital budget dedicates $1.2 billion to make our roads and sidewalks better for everyone to use them in the entire city. That's pedestrian, buses, bicycles, cars, making better connections in our neighborhoods. One example of this is North Washington Street Bridge up the street. I know that the people of Charlestown are looking forward to it being complete. You're not looking forward to the construction of it because you're tired of it. But the full project is something that we're working on. In every neighborhood, we're focused on safety and eliminating traffic injuries and fatalities, something that is very sad when it happens, particularly pedestrians and bicyclists. And we're working to make sure the money that we're putting in the budget and the capital is to bring those numbers to zero. We've cut the number of fatalities in half over the last 3 years, and we're not going to stop moving until we're at zero. And we're going to have to put some money in the budget for blowing signs over, too, so it doesn't hurt anybody. We're also making sure that we're keeping people safe by our first responders and giving them the tools they need for training. And when I say first responders, I'm talking police and fire and EMS to make sure they have that they need. We're replacing 8 fire trucks. We're building new firehouses right now in Dorchester and Roxbury. It'll be the first time in about 30 years that we're building new firehouses. We're building a brand new police station in East Boston. And we're building new EMS facility in the Seaport to make sure that the people of the Seaport have access to ambulances when needed. We're also keeping our neighborhoods safe and making them healthy by taking bold action on climate change. We're leading a national charge to cut carbon emissions here in Boston, but set the tone for the rest of the country. We're also doing groundbreaking work preparing for sea level rise. That's real. We see it when we have tides coming in and water coming over seawalls in different parts of the city. We saw it a few years ago in South Boston. We saw a dumpster floating down Seaport Boulevard. We're seeing it in Dorchester and the Neponset and other places. We're seeing it in Charlestown and the North End. We're seeing it in East Boston. We're seeing it all in South Boston. So we're going to be making sure that we're dealing with sea level rise. We're dedicating 10% of all new revenues to the capital budget on climate resilient projects, which means that we're making it real investments. Again, we don't have a federal partner. This is something the federal partner should be paying in and helping us with, but we're making sure that in our budget we're dedicating money to do that. Yes. This funding will support Resilient Boston Harbor, a plan that we announced in September. It's going to be a system of parks and beaches and trails that are elevated to block and flood and create opportunities. So what we're doing is we're connecting people back to the water here in Boston by creating safety for sea level rise, but we're also allowing people the access to the water. This plan invests $20 million in climate resilient waterfront park along 4 Point Channel. That's where we're going to have the new Martin Richard Park, which is going to open in June. And next to that, we're going to be investing $20 million as the 4 Point Channel sea level rises. It floods out neighborhoods in our city, so we're going to be using that to protect it. We're investing $23 million to revitalize Franklin Park and $23 million to revitalize Boston Common. This is because of the sale of the Winthrop Square Garage that we're able to get this one-time revenue to be able to make investments and really do some major renovations there. The capital plan also dedicates $2 million to Moakley Park in South Boston, turning it into Boston's largest climate-ready waterfront. By doing Moakley Park over in South Boston, we actually protect the residents of the Mary Ellen McCormick Housing Development, the Old Colony Housing Development, Roxbury in the South End, Lower Roxbury in the South End. So as we do 4 Point Channel and Moakley Park, what we're doing is not letting the water connect and go into the neighborhoods in Lower Roxbury. So we're going to be preventing, when this plan gets built out, preventing potential flooding happening in those neighborhoods. In addition to these big projects, we're investing another $245 million in neighborhood parks all over the city. So we're doing parks in Charlestown. We're doing parks almost, I think, in every single neighborhood in the city. We're doing our parks over, and we're doing them right so that people can enjoy them and have beautiful places for the kids to play and for older people to enjoy and rest and for people to just to be able to be proud of the neighborhood. There's no reason why when we go to the suburbs, we see a beautiful park there, and they say, why can't our parks be like that? We're going to make our parks look like the suburban parks to make them that well. We're also excited about a project that's underway at City Hall Plaza. We're investing $70 million to make better use of the 7-acre space in downtown Boston. Basically what we're doing, we're turning City Hall Plaza into what it truly was envisioned for, an open space for the people of Boston to enjoy. And we're also doing some work there because we have a tunnel cap under there, and it's sinking down a bit. So we're doing some work there as well to make sure. We don't want to be on top of the train, so we're working on that. We want to turn City Hall Plaza truly into the People's Plaza, with play areas, seating, trees, and more space for special events. A lot of people use City Hall as a building, and sometimes outside now we're going to turn to another public open space that people should be gathering. If you go to other cities around the world and you go to their city halls or their state capitals, usually around that building is a very beautiful open public space. And what we have around us public space is a lot of bricks. And if you walk there, there's some problems. So we're going to continue to move forward. This plan also invests over $500 million in Boston Public School projects. It's part of our 10-year plan. We're upgrading school buildings and making sure that every student has access to 21st century education. Right now, under construction, Boston Arts Academy in the Fenway and the Elliott School in the North End. We have $1 million budgeted to start design next year of the new 7 to 12 McCormick School in Dorchester. We're investing in new kitchens in our schools to serve fresh foods in 30 additional schools. We'll have planning efforts at the Josiah Quincy Upper School in Chinatown and the Carter School in the South End. And through our capital plan, we're making sure that we're going to continue to make investments in our schools as we move forward. As you can see, our school buildings, a lot of them are, 2/3 were built before World War II. 1/3 of them were built after that. We don't have many new schools in our city. And if we're going to be making sure that our kids have the resources they need to be educated the right way, we need to make sure they have the right place to learn in too. So we're going to be working through our school budget. We're also dedicating $13 million to public art in this budget. That's something that a lot of people want to see and a lot of artists want to see. We've got at least a couple of people happy about that. We're investing $127 million in libraries citywide. That's a big difference from probably 2010, where we were talking about closing 6 libraries in the city of Boston. Now we're making investments in libraries in Dorchester and Rosendale and Roxbury, and we're renovating the central, doing some more renovating in the central library for more programming and really working. The library is not central and everyone else. It's one system today. Everybody's the same, and it's about how do we make sure all our libraries are the same. And we're making the first in the nation's first branch library system the best it's ever been. And our goal really is to make sure that we have the best library system, not just on the paper, but throughout in different neighborhoods. I'd like to just close by talking about one of the most pressing issues facing our society right now, and that's the opioid epidemic. It's hitting us hard in Massachusetts. It's certainly hitting us hard in Boston. It's hitting us hard in almost everybody's home. If I said this 10 years ago, not everyone would have known somebody that has an addiction or died of an addiction. Today, if you ask people, they have a cousin or a friend, a brother, a sister, a father, a mother, or somebody that's struggling. Boston has responded by building one of the strongest recovery systems in the nation. When you think about that, we still see so much devastation on the streets. We have an incredible system in place, but we still see a lot of life lost, a lot of sad situations, a lot of devastation. But a keystone to our work will be our comprehensive recovery campus on Long Island, something that is really important. The capital plan funds a bridge to the islands. We don't turn anyone away. When somebody shows up on our street and they're homeless, and they come from California or Texas or Trinidad, we don't send them back. We try to help them. Long Island campus isn't for Boston residents. It's for all residents. People who need help to get into recovery. That's why we've said, that's why it's important for us to rebuild the bridge. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to continue to move forward to rebuild the bridge. This bridge isn't just a bridge. This bridge is a bridge to recovery, a bridge to hope. We're also going to increase our budget for recovery services, and we are setting a national example on how to approach this with care and compassion. The areas that we're investing in when it comes to addiction, recovery services, infrastructure, the environment, affordable housing. Washington and the White House has turned their back on all of these things. We don't have a federal partner in any of these areas, and people say, well, you keep picking on Washington. I wouldn't pick on Washington if we had a partner that helped us. We don't have one today. We have individuals who represent us that are fighting the good fight for us, and we need to stand with them, but we don't have policies coming out that are helping right now. But we are not going to wait around, and we don't have the ability to wait around because people's lives and future depend on what we do every day. I'm proud that we'll be able to work together and we'll be able to be a model around the country. This budget with a big heart reflects our values, our beliefs of every single, in making sure that we know and let people know that every single person is worthy of dignity and hope and opportunity. This budget absolutely will improve the quality of life in our neighborhoods. There's no question about it. And it will continue to generate opportunities for our residents for generations to come. I want to thank each and every person who helped guide this vision through Imagine Boston 2030 4 years ago. I want to thank you for taking time, for being part of it, for giving a suggestion, making an opinion. I also want to thank everyone who helped put this budget together, and I want to thank the City Council, and I want to thank the members of the Boston delegation of the legislature for working. Right now they're doing the budget today. They couldn't be here. And they're working to make sure that we get investments that we need from the state to continue to move our city forward. So I want to thank all of our political partners for what they have done. I also invite people here today and people going to watch this show to explore. I want you to go out, explore all the investments across every neighborhood. I want you to visit our website at budget.boston.gov. I want to thank everyone for their support, and I look forward to working with the council over the next, I think, 6 weeks it is, to get through the budget process so we can get this stuff moving forward. Now I have the opportunity to hand this off. When I became the mayor, I had worked with Billy McGonigal on many projects. Many years ago, we created a program. President Obama gave Boston a grant to redo the Old Colony housing development. In that budget, in that proposal, was that we were supposed to have a pre-apprentice program. So Billy and myself and the building trades and his team, Kate and some other folks, got together and we talked about creating an opportunity called Building Pathways. The Old Colony housing development is built.
Yes.
The money is paid for. Building Pathways is still operational and has put hundreds of young people into the building trades long after that housing development was done. Part of that goal and the reason for that happening was Billy McGonigal's leadership. And I want to thank Billy McGonigal's leadership because he's somebody who grew up in housing. He grew up in public housing, and he's never forgotten where he's come from. So the director of Boston Housing Authority, Billy McGonigal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm humbled by those kind. Oh, stop it, Phil, will you, please? The mayor appropriately said this is a budget with a big heart. It's a budget with a big heart from a mayor with a big heart. So let's recognize that. I'm extraordinarily pleased to welcome you all here today to the Bunker Hill Public Housing Development. As the mayor said, this is one of the oldest public housing communities in the country. It is the largest public housing development in New England. It houses 1,100 families, over 3,000 people, and where there are about a dozen different languages spoken, and it is one of the most diverse census tracts in New England. So I'm delighted to be here today on this historic day. As the mayor said, this $30 million capital grant will in fact get the long-planned renovation of this community up and running. We look forward to taking our plans and our proposals in more specificity out to the broader neighborhood as early as next month. We'll be meeting with the stakeholders in this neighborhood. We'll be working with BPDA to get this thing up and running and to finally get it into the ground and to create deeply affordable housing and the market rate housing to create a wonderful mixed income community here in Charlestown. I'd also like to recognize the real heroes, are the Charlestown Resident Alliance, the tenant organization here. I have the pleasure of working with vibrant tenant organizations all over the city. This is certainly one of the finest. I want to recognize Phil, Tina, Carla, and we'll be hearing from Nancy very soon. I would also like to recognize the two former, recently past presidents of this tenant organization that also worked very hard in where we are today. Certainly Betty and Tiara, I would like to thank you for your service. I would be remiss if I did not recognize Lauren and Jay Rose, the folks that have worked and provided advice and counsel to our tenant organization here from Greater Boston Legal Service. I want to thank them for all they do for the public housing residents all over the city. So without further ado, I am absolutely delighted to introduce the current president of the Charlestown Resident Alliance, my friend, my hero, Nancy Martinez. Nancy.
Hi, everybody. Thank you to come over here to this important event. My name is Nancy Martinez. I am the proud president of the Charlestown Resident Alliance. I want to thank Mayor Walsh for your commitment for the $30 million to help our residents for a better future. And giving us what we need for the redevelopment so we can keep our home. I want to thank Bill McGonigal, Kay Bennett, Lydia Edwards, the mayor and Bill McGonigal have ensured that we are at the table with the BHA, Legging, and the city. When the decisions are made, I would also like to thank the Charlestown Resident Alliance for every week and giving their time and participation. I want to thank our team, David, Lauren, Kate, Debbie, Jeff, and Jay, and all other people who are offering their work to the Charlestown Resident Alliance. The Charlestown Resident Alliance have become partners in this deal. By having a seat at the table, this will also include our resident input and participation. The City of Boston leads the league in respecting the residents' rights to participate in a full manners. We want to thank our residents for their full support as well, because without the residents and Bill McGonigal, we wouldn't have a Charlestown Resident Alliance. Yes. With the Charlestown Resident Alliance, please to continue to work with Mayor Walsh, BHA, Leggett McCall, in order to make sure that this Charlestown public housing redevelopment becomes a national motor and wins all the awards. Thanks for everyone for making this day possible. Now let's do great things together. Thank you very much. Let's stick together and let this make happen. Thank you, everybody. Have a nice day.
Good morning. Good morning. Good afternoon. My name's John Barrows, and I'm the Chief of Economic Development for the City of Boston, and I'm really excited to be here, and I'm excited to be part of this administration. When I first joined administration, Mayor Walsh said, we need to make sure that the residents, as Nancy said, is guiding everything that we do, everything that he does as mayor, and everything that we move forward in the City of Boston, which is why he launched Imagine Boston 2030, the city's roadmap for making sure that the City of Boston, the businesses, the organizations, and the residents are driving what's happening in our city. We are here using this vision to literally shape the future of our city. This plan was shaped by you, the residents of Charlestown and the residents of every neighborhood in the City of Boston. The planning process for Imagine Boston 2030 hinged on three crucial priorities: resident engagement and voice, thank you, Nancy; mayoral priorities; data and research. 15,000 residents from every single neighborhood in our city submitted feedback, opinions, and what they want to see for the future of our city. The primary goals you identified were expanding opportunities for all Bostonians, supporting a vibrant economy, enhancing quality of life, and preparing for climate change. These priorities are informing everything we do. That's especially evident in our capital investment outlined here today. Mayor Walsh's capital investment plan represents $2.78 billion of investment in infrastructure, climate resilience, enhancing neighborhoods, and generating networks of opportunity for every single neighborhood in the city, from East Boston to Mattapan, and from Brighton to Charlestown. That's right. I know when I need energy, I need to come to Charlestown. As Mayor Walsh stated earlier, Boston, that was really quick. That's our mayor. As Mayor Walsh stated earlier, Boston is leading where Washington is failing. And that means both our local government and our partners and our engaged residents working together for our shaped future. Thank you all who lent their voice, time, and energy to Imagine Boston 2030 and the future of our city. At this point, I'd like to call up Reed Caitlin from Charlestown Lacrosse. Reed.
Hi, how are you? My name is Reed Catlin. I'm the director of the Charlestown Lacrosse and Learning Center. I run the youth lacrosse program. We have lacrosse for kindergarten through 8th graders for boys and girls. We have almost 400 kids in our program alone. I also run an after-school learning center on Green Street for 4th graders through 12th graders, so all are welcome. You can always go to our website, charlestownlacrosse.com, for more info. But I'm here to not only represent the youth lacrosse program, but the other youth sports programs here in Charlestown that are getting generous money from the mayor and his office to upgrade our fields, the big fields at the high school, as well as the baseball fields down by Schraff's building. These fields at the high school are by far the most used fields in the city. In the spring programs with lacrosse, soccer, track, softball, all down there, all at once. Every day during the week, Monday through Sunday, we have over 400 city youth that are down at those fields playing whatever sport they can. And that's not including just the kids that go down there and run around and have a lot of fun. That doesn't include the high school programs at all. So those fields are getting constant use. And a couple of years ago, we started finding holes and little little spots that we could kind of patch up, but we needed it to get kind of a new field down there, new turf, new amenities down there. So really just on behalf of all the youth sports, football, track, cheerleading, soccer, baseball, softball, and everybody, I just want to thank the mayor, his office, our counselors, and the Charlestown residents as well. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Please go to boston.budget.gov to review more details of the mayor's operating and capital budget. And we look forward to engaging with residents, council, and all through the rest of our budget process this year. Thanks for being here.